Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with a purpose for the peoples. I am your host, Christopher Keith. Thank you for joining us. Listen, I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Everything has been so heavy in this world. You know what I'm saying? Everything has been so heavy, so much garbage and crazy stuff going on. So I decided this week, being a holiday week and all, I just want to do something a little lighter, right? So we are returning to I got a story to tell. And we'll get back to the heavy stuff later, because that's what I do. But we're just gonna have a little fun today, and I'm gonna tell y'all an old story. I got some stories, man. Y'all know I got some stories. So I got a story to tell, and we're gonna call this one Sins of the Father. All right? All right. So peep it. 1984. 1984, living in East St. Louis, like 11th grade, going into the 12th. And I need a job, right? And so I need a job, and what are most teenagers, what are most of our, can you guess what most of the jobs we used to do? I don't think they do it anymore, but back in the day, the first your first job, young person, you guessed it, right? Them golden arches, McDonald's, right? So I'm thinking to myself, cool. It's one McDonald's in East St. Louis, right downtown, happened to be owned by a black man, right? And that black man's name is was Mr. Dwight Flowers. And so, let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Flowers. I'm pretty sure his name is Dwight. So he had a son. Well, so first of all, Mr. Flowers is now an ancestor. So shout out, rest in peace, my guy. Uh, I'm pretty sure his name was Dwight Flowers. So he's got a son named Dwight as well that I went to high school with at Lincoln. Shout out, Lincoln. Anyway, so let me tell you about Mr. Flowers. So Mr. Flowers, he owned a McDonald's. He was tall, yellow-skinned brother. He wore like a three-piece suit every single day to work. And he would hold court. He would kind of hold court because like at this particular McDonald's, there was a group of old black men who would come in and sit in the cut. Like these, they would kind of occupy these two tables toward facing the street. And, often, my father would take me around these guys, and so we go in there for breakfast sometimes, and I might have me a Danish or something like that. And, my dad would be talking to these cats, these older cats who would come in like every single day. And, so they would drink their coffee and stuff and do their thing. And we'd be all reading newspapers and stuff, passing newspapers around. And it's kind of like we would have like two sets of newspapers, and then we would just all take turns, passing around while we were talking. Well, I wasn't doing a lot of talking, you know what I'm saying? Because again, that was during that seen not heard thing, and I was just really interested in what the old gentleman was talking about anyway. I always loved the elders, you know what I'm saying? So it was always cool to me. And Mr. Flowers would just sit in there, and do his thing and just be talking too. Like talking that super, super, super nice, and I imagine that this is probably like kind of the way, well, one of the reasons why I ended up being like a news junkie, reading those newspapers, listening to a lot of KMOX radio. um, and so kind of had that in me anyway, and this just really solidified it. So, based on these interactions, I thought Mr. Flower was the bomb, because he was always, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" Like he had this cadence to his voice where he would almost talk in a rhythm or like he was singing in a way, so he'd be like, "Hey, Chris, how you doing, man? How's school going? All right." Always big smile on his face and everything. And so, when it was time for me to get a job, I came to him. I was like, "Hey, I came in, but then, not like in one of those settings. It was really like not on one of those morning sessions. It was like a time I went after school. And I was like, "Yo, Mr. Flowers, you think I can, fill out an application, so I can, work for you?" And he had me fill out the application and everything. And when I did that, he told me, all right, well, just come back and see me, this, that, and the other. So, like a few weeks went by, I'd ask him about it. Wasn't time yet. Then a few months went by, never got the job, he didn't give me the time of day. But he was always super nice about it. He just wasn't giving me no love. So, he just always say, it's not the time yet, Chris. Come back and see me, man. I got you though. I got you. It's just not time yet. I'm waiting on some things to work out. So it's like, all right, man. So this went on for so long, man, that I decided like to work at another McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? And so my sister was working at this McDonald's over in North St. Louis County. And it's on West Florissant Avenue in Ferguson, Missouri. Shout out Ferguson. Literally around the corner from where Michael Brown was murdered by Darren Wilson, right? So my sister was working out there, so I decided, I filled out my application out there. She helped me get on. The only problem is that it took like an hour and a half to get there with the bus trip. So between the bus trip from East St. Louis, I had to catch the Alta bus and then the Northland bus, right? And then once you got off at Northland Shopping Center, it's like a little mall, like outdoor mall area. They had a movie theater. It's actually where I saw Purple Rain there. I saw The Color Purple there. And so, but the McDonald's was like damn near a mile from the Northland Shopping Center, but that's where the bus would let you off. So, between so that's a whole, like I said, that's a whole 90 minutes, man, of getting there. And then, obviously I'm working in the evening. So, you get to closing and stuff and it's super late. And, if I ain't catch that last bus back to East Saint, I was gonna be out of luck, you know. So, man, so I did that for a while and eventually, it just got to be too much. So I couldn't get out there. So, I'm like, I came back to Mr. Flowers like hat in hand, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, come on, Mr. Flowers, man, tell me, why don't you give me this job, man? Why you hold it out on me? Mr. Flowers, what I do? I do something wrong? I thought we was cool. So finally, Mr. Flowers breaks down and he gonna tell me the deal. Yeah, well, Chris, your father owed me some money. Then I'm like, God damn. So, a little bit about my father. So my father was, full-time salesman, part-time con man. You know, maybe those two were reversed. I don't know. Maybe he was a full-time con man and a part-time salesman. I don't know. He was a lifelong salesman. I think I told you guys that before, but it wasn't unusual for him to borrow some money and kind of disappear. He used to do the same thing to me, actually. It is, I used to get upset about it, not because of the money, because I used to be like, hey, man, if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't got to avoid me. You know what I'm saying? So, but he had this kind of history with people. And so he borrowed money. And then when he couldn't get it back or, didn't pay him back or whatever, he would just kind of disappear. So he ghosted Mr. Flowers, right? And Mr. Flowers was taking this out on me. Wasn't gonna give me this job. So, but I'm desperate at this point. You know what I'm saying? I'm desperate, and I'm like, hey, man, look, Mr. Flowers. If you just go on and hire me, man, I'm a good worker. I already got this experience. I'm a great grill man. You know what I'm saying? So look, man, if you hire me, man, you just take whatever you owe you, man, just take it out my first check. So Mr. Flowers is like, well, all right then, sounds good to me. So off we go. So I start working. Same salary I had, working in St. Louis and Ferguson. $3.35 an hour. And I'm busting that grill down, man, for 3 weeks before I get my first paycheck. I'm closing, I'm there about like 2, 3 nights a week. Definitely closing on Friday and Saturday nights, right? And because I was really busy, because especially like during football, basketball season, you know, uh that spot would get packed. Because like even teams that would play against us, a lot of times they bring their bus to the make that McDonald's after work. I mean after the game. So I was busting that thing down, man. And And it was cool. I didn't mind working, but I did learn that there was this other side of Mr. Flowers, right? So, it's kind of like I just heard the other day, there's this book that I'm going to check out, and it's about the Lakers, like another book about the Lakers, and but it's specifically kind of about these last few years since LeBron James got on the team, and the author kind of features this entity about Magic Johnson, when he was, you know, part GM, part running the club. And one of the things he talked about was like that there was two different people, right? There was Magic and there was Irvin, right? So Magic was the guy who come in and he smiled, hey y'all, how you doing? High five, you this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? Kick it with you and everything. Big cheesy grin, you know what I'm saying? Make you feel at home, know a little bit about your background and everything, all that. And then there was Irvin. And Irvin is a beast. Irvin is the one that had a meeting, according to the author, had a meeting with the staff in his first meeting. Everybody came in, they excited, you know what I'm saying? They want to do a good job for Magic, and make sure that they, be a great part of the Lakers organization, and they all standing on pins and needles, it's Magic, I'm working for Magic Johnson, you know what I'm saying? Excited, want to do a good job. Man got, started at Magic Johnson theaters, used to own them TGI Fridays. So, staple in the community, right, for decades, beyond basketball. Well, Irvin walks in, and first thing out his mouth is, I got 2,000 resumes in my office. I can fire any of you motherfuckers anytime. It's like, it was like, whoa! So, as there's Magic and there's Irvin, there was Dwight and there was Mr. Flowers. So, obviously, Dwight was the one I was dealing with when I was visiting McDonald's, even though I was calling him Mr. Flowers. But Mr. Flowers, the owner, totally different cat, right? He wasn't the same cat. He was a killer. He was a ruthless taskmaster who ran that motherfucker like the Kremlin. You hear me? I remember one time, one of the cooks had like these whole tray of burgers and stuff that he was putting on, right? On the grill. And these were the smaller burgers. He wasn't the quarter pounders kind. These are the kind you make for the cheeseburgers, double cheeseburgers or whatever, and the Big Macs. And my man dropped them on the floor. So he was finna pick them up, be like, oh, I'm sorry, my fault, Mr. Flowers. He's finna throw them up, throw them in the trash. Mr. Flowers was like, no, no, don't throw them away. Put them back on the grill. Put them back on the grill. They all right. You know what I'm saying? So he got, he would just kind of always make you feel like you was on the edge. You know what I'm saying? Like when he came, man, like I said, he was iron fist. You know what I'm saying? Like, getting on you, these burgers ain't coming out fast enough or whatever. But I was a beast on that grill though, so make no mistake. He ain't had to say that to me. I was a beast. And the only people he was really nice to were like the cashiers, because he always had cute cashiers at the front. You know what I'm saying? Little honeys, we was all like we all went to Lincoln, so we was all from the same high school, except for like some of the people who had already graduated. And so them girls, like if they was cute, oh, Miss Flowers be over there, hey sweetie, how you doing? All right, all right. You know what I'm saying? Always smiling at him and stuff. And I ain't never seen him go off on a cashier like ever, right? Ever. It was always sweet smiles and stuff. But for us grunts, oh man, it was a different story. Like I remember one time he tried to pull a fast one on us, right? So my man Wilkie Rice, graduate class of '85. Shout out Wilkie if you're out there. He was working the drive-through, and so you get to hear the little beep and stuff. And so you heard a voice on the other end go, hey Wilkie, hook me up, hook me up. Act like he was a student or something. So Wilkie was like, all right, but you gotta order something. you got to order something, man. What you gonna order?" And he was like, "All right, well, just give me a cheeseburger, man. I'll pay for the cheeseburger, then hook me up." Look, it was like, "All right, cool." So he pulls around, man, and by this time, when he pulls around, Wilkie's got the biggest white McDonald bags that the store could offer, right? Big ass McDonald bag. And Mr. Flowers pulls up and he's like, got this look on his face like, gotcha, because he's seen that big ass bag, right? So at that time, like a cheeseburger was like 50 cent, 49, 50 cent. And Wilkie was like, handed him the bag and told him, be for, 50 cent. And Miss Flowers was all like, hype, like he got him, like I got him. Open it up, wasn't nothing but one little cheeseburger in that motherfucker. Mr. Flowers couldn't do nothing but laugh. He couldn't do nothing but laugh. But anywho, so that was Miss Flowers. So anyway, payday came, like I said, man, 3 weeks later. Like we got paid every 2 weeks, but I ended up working a week, and then, so I had 2 weeks on my check and everything. And, 335 an hour. I ain't I'm kind of counting, but I ain't counting because I know that he gonna take something out. At least I think he gonna take something out. And so, this particular Friday, I come in and he passing all the checks out. He passed everybody checks out, kind of hand it to him and stuff as we walking in the door and whatever. And, but he ain't passed me mine. And I looked at him like, "Miss Flowers, you got my check." He was like, "Wait, Chris, I'm gonna take your check across the street to the bank first. Here, sign this." So turn it on the back, man, sign my name on it. True to his word, bro, man, took that check across the street and cashed it. Came back, handed me $77 in cold, hard cash US dollar bills. I said, "All right, Miss Flowers, we good." "Oh yeah, Chris, we good, man. We good." Now you may think to yourself that I thought to myself, "Man, that's cold-blooded." You know what I'm saying? 17-year-old kid. I ain't my daddy. I'm busting my ass coming home, smell like grease, French fries, and pickles. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't think like that. I did not think like that. I thought to myself, you know what? A deal is a deal. You know what I'm saying? Got no problems with Mr. Flowers. No harm, no foul. He kept it a buck, right? He kept it 100. But he definitely kept that same energy about my daddy. He was done with him. And my daddy, like he didn't even try to cover the debt. You know what I'm saying? So I don't remember whether I told him that I was working to cover his debt. Like that part, I honestly don't remember. But I do remember, like, when I would close, he'd have to come pick me up. And he picked me up, but he never would walk in the store. He'd just be outside and I see the car, I see the lights out there. So he wouldn't walk, he'd just park outside and I come out. And I never forget, like one night I'm closing and I want to take some food home with me. It's late. And most of the time we throw that food away anyway. But Miss Flowers, he just kind of had that policy where you just couldn't take food home, even if they was gonna throw it away. Like he was perfectly content with throwing that food away, unlike them nasty ass dirty burgers that fell on the floor. You know what I'm saying? So, but I asked him, every now and then I asked him, I was like, "Hey, Miss Flowers, can I take this food home? I think I had a quarter pounder with cheese, I had some French fries, and I had one of them apple pies." Now, unless you close to my age, you don't remember how good them apple pies used to be. Them apple pies at McDonald's used to be the bomb. The bomb, you hear me? So Miss Flower was feeling, he's feeling good that night. He was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I was like, "Yeah, it was Flower. Can I take this stuff home?" He was like, "Yeah, Chris, man, go ahead. Just don't give none to your father." He meant that shit too. I said, "Yo, Miss Fly, don't worry about it, man. I'm gonna eat this myself, man. I ain't gonna give it to my daddy, man. Don't worry about it." So that is my story to tell. It's a very quick one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a safe holiday. Um, Stay safe out there. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your people. This is your man's Christopher Keith, C Mac, shouting you out and everything, man. Y'all have a safe holiday. Stay safe. Uh, yo, be blessed. Peace out.